Hello and welcome. I'm Gauhar Raza and you are watching Eureka. A family from Punjab, very well educated, and a child was born, a male child. Mother was a homemaker and father was a physicist and electronics engineer. This is the environment in the family and the boy grows. He grows in Bombay and then the family shifts to Bangalore. This is where he is groomed in one of the best schools of Bangalore. But then father suddenly decides that now you have grown up, go back to your roots, go back to Punjab. And this boy becomes one of the most excellent scientists of the country. Welcome, Dr. Ahuja, to Rajya Sabha channel. We are honored.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell us about the cultural shock which normally people get when they move from Punjab to maybe Delhi or to UK or to England, but here you grow up in metropolitan town and then go back to Punjab? What was the kind of cultural shock that you experienced?
Well, if I had shifted from Bangalore to, let's say, Chandigarh, perhaps the shock wouldn't have been as much. But here, actually, I shifted from Bangalore to Ludhiana and to the Punjab Agriculture University, and that too in the College of Agriculture, where we had a whole conglomerate of rustic rural youth with all their rusticism that one can have.
Think of.
So the language, Punjab's language and punctuations are very well known. That nothing goes without a abuse. And I was not so attuned to this kind of communication. So first shock was this element of communicating with my, fellow students and classmates. I was brought up in a very cultured way, and this was a tremendous cultural shock. But then it took me a while, but then I caught on and came to the situation of equations.
If you go back, do you remember your school and teachers and...
Very much, very much. I feel very proud of my school. This was the, very well-known school of Bangalore, Baldwin Boys. And it gave us a lot of ethos of competitiveness. In fact, this was known for, in those times, we had the best boxers of the country, we had the best band of the country. At one point of time in the Indian schoolboys team, we had 4 boys from our school. Mm-hmm. So it was a pride of saying, that I was...
Do you remember some teacher who really was your favorite and he affected your career later on?
Well, my teacher in 5th class who inducted me, in my report it was written, very talkative. And, the principal said, this guy is not such a... And she said, look, only intelligent guys can talk a lot. So she took me on and she sort of promoted me in a way that encouraged me.
And you were left alone.
Yeah,
you were
I was
not
left
scolded.
alone and I sort of integrated into the school very much. And
when did you think of joining this stream of science? Right from the beginning? It was father's influence and mother's influence?
No, actually, it was at the pre-university stage. I was in St. Joseph's College and, I took biology and not mathematics as a stream.
But you never thought of going to arts?
No, I never thought of going to arts. And I took on to this and I was interested.
But can you look back and why did you not go to arts?
Well, in those days also, you need to be in some profession, in a way, medical or into engineering and all that. So my father was into this professional, he was an electronics person. And so I thought perhaps that, I would also follow suit. But destiny had a different...
You could have been a manager. You could have been
Truly,
a doctor. You could have been.
where
Why did you join agriculture?
indeed, when I was in pre-university, I was a ranker, and I got in those days. It's by your merit that you got admissions into colleges. And since I was a ranker, I could get admission into any college. I could
And
get
any
into
stream.
Bangalore Medical College, but I opted against. I just had
So
this
you said
fascination.
no to medical
I said
stream,
no to medical.
and
Yes,
it was a conscious decision.
it was a conscious decision. One of the reasons was the environment of educational campuses, universities in Punjab. At that point of time, these were exceptional. These were very well organized, very advanced campuses, very good facilities for sports and personality development. And it was, whether it was Punjab University, whether it was Punjab Agriculture University, or for that matter, Punjabi University, at that point of time, these
These were
campuses,
great universities.
very good. So it impressed me. And I liked that openness. And I wanted to be free and away. And here,
You could have been manager. Did you try for IIM or something?
see, after my master's, I got admitted into the Indian Institute of Management at Bangalore for the Fellow of Management program. I got admitted.
Which is a very, very prestigious position for any student.
Yes, at that point of time, only 3 persons in the country in a year could get admitted, and I was one of them. But at the same time, I had been, chosen for the Agriculture Research Services, and I had a PhD in hand, PhD course.
And you loved agriculture.
So no, in fact, it offered me, I had a job of a scientist. I had in the management option, and then I chose to go for the job
over
as a
being
scientist.
a doctor or a manager, you chose to be a researcher.
Exactly.
That is just wonderful. Today, most of these students who excel would probably make it reverse.
Yeah.
First would be management, second would be doctor, and third would be agriculture. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. The discussion continues. We'll come back. Welcome back. We were discussing with Dr. Paramvir Ahuja how he got into science stream and how you preferred research over any other profession. Now, once you have done your job as a student, now you are getting into serious research. So IRI was one of the major options, but research was also, Ph.D. was also an option. How did you choose between the two?
Well, I took the job first, but lucky as I was, I got the Commonwealth Scholarship.
At the same time, when you got
No. It was
But
after 3 years in job, precisely, I think 2.5 years, that I got the fellowship. And I then resigned from the research services and opted to do my PhD at the University of Nottingham.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you, from Bangalore to Ludhiana, and I'm sure your college must be proud of you that you have become DG of CSIR.
True.
I'm sure you also would have remembered your college and school
Very
backwards when you held that position recently. So from Ludhiana, now you land up in Nottingham, which is where the research, real research begins. How did you enjoy that?
First of all, I must correct you. The real research happened even at Ludhiana.
Is it?
Yes. I must say my grounding in Ludhiana was really nice. It was at a peak at that time, one of the best universities in Asia. It was that grounding that kept me going. So my stay in Nottingham was very, very productive. It was a huge exposure of working with 28 nationalities in a lab. And you were largely governed by your own mind. It was the environment given to you
That
decide.
freedom was
The
given to
freedom,
you.
the environment, the interaction, that was what was mentoring you. So it was, in fact, a fantastic environment to get. And it is actually the structures and systems over there that actually empower you to perform better. So I learnt not only my science, but also the issues of science management in that environment. And through it, I sort of explored my studies in Cambridge, in Germany, and it was a fascinating experience in the University of Nottingham.
And you excelled in protoplast fusion at that
Exactly.
time. That is
Yeah.
the problem that you wanted to
Protoplast
crack,
culture and fusion.
which
Yes.
was the cutting edge science at that
Of
point
that
of
time.
time. And
Yes.
it is also riddled with a lot of problems even now.
Even
The
now.
area
Yeah.
area is difficult area. When did you develop confidence that you will be able to contribute to this area significantly? Or you just wanted to get a degree and come back and
No, no, no. In fact, it was a very intense indulgence for the years that I was over there. And in fact, it was practically more than 15 hours a day that I functioned in the lab. And it gave me
but
a
probably every
tremendous insight into. You see, I was the first plant breeder to get into a post graduation in this area, and this has implications in genetic manipulations. And my professor, who was an FRS, Fellow of the Royal Society, he took me around everywhere with him because he knew he was a biochemist and I was a plant breeder. So he took me to Cambridge, he took me to Aberystwyth, wherever. He
the
knew
best of the places.
exactly. He had huge confidence that I would, clarify all the fundamentals in the aspect of genetics and plant breeding.
And then you shift to other institutes in Germany and then visit many other places across the world, including Canada. And all that. Why did you come back to India? Had you decided right in the beginning that
Yeah.
I'll go study and come back, or
I
it was
had a conviction when I was in ICAR in Agriculture Research Service. I went through extraordinary rough time because I secured a national fellowship with an assurance of leave I wasn't given. I saw a very sad plight of our bureaucracy at that point of time, and I was very hurt. And I said, running away from this is not proper. I must go back. Because I had seen systems now. And I thought that
which
no,
impeded
which were
progress of his students
creating
and
impedance. So I came back with a full conviction that I cannot change the world, I cannot change everybody, but I can change the domain where I function. And I think my ethos in coming back was creating systems and structures that were empowering and enabling science in a better way. And that's what I did at Lucknow, and that's what I did at Palampur.
Lucknow, you were inducted as a young, energetic, creative scientist. Are you, if you look back today, are you satisfied that the kind of support that you got at that time was enough for you to build your career?
I mean, within the constraints of that time, I'm more than satisfied because there was absolutely no stopping me. What I discovered was that it is the scientist who actually inhibits oneself. If the scientist has a very sincere goal and aspiration and has the wherewithal of mind and knowledge, I don't think in our country there is paucity of funds and people giving you the wherewithal.
Support.
So I feel the conviction of your belief in what you want to do is extraordinarily important in what you want to do, and you'll get it.
And the career that you followed at CIMAP suddenly got disrupted because you were given a much higher responsibility, which was also a bureaucratic responsibility. Did you feel that you will be your research will be affected at that time or not? It didn't get affected. That I know. But did you feel at that time that this is more of a bureaucratic responsibility?
I had a roaring group of 22 people going at Lucknow when I left. And it was besetting for me to start afresh. And that too, when I came to Lucknow, I was given a blueprint without a building to create a department. And when I came to Palampur, again I was given a blueprint, and this time, of an institution.
Scratch.
And once again to start without buildings. So I did have a setback in my science for about 3 years when I shifted, because I had to create buildings, I had to create people, I had to train, I had to create structures, and then move on with my science. So it was a enormous kind of a task, but nevertheless, it's important that one should. I was in an area where there were very few distractions, and it was 100% of my time and my thought that was onto my job. So that was my focus, and that's what I did.
I know because IHBT, which is called IHBT today, was a small center, and I had visited that before you became director of that place. And that place didn't have almost anything. And now, when I visit IHBT, it's a full fledged, bubbling, beautiful institute in the country. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere, we'll come back. Welcome back to Eureka. With Dr. Ahuja, we were discussing how he built an institute in a place where nobody could, at that point of time, probably think of building such a big institute, and that to a first rate in the country. When you started off, it was only a small center without almost a building. There was just one small building, which was more of a guest house rather than an institute building. So, this was a major task, and you have been a very, very diligent science institution creator. What kind of problems did you face in creating that?
Yeah, when I started, the feeling around was that nothing can happen here.
Absolutely. Everybody thought
but
that
I
nothing
convinced
can.
myself that it can. And it was a task unto itself. First of all, creating structures of functioning was a challenge. Because from a CSIR complex, we became the Institute of Himalayan Bioresource Technology, and I actually wrote the mandate and the vision. So that was it was an opportunity given to me by the then director, Dr. Akshay Gupta. But this was a challenge that first the buildings had to be created, the structures of functioning had to be created, and then we had not to lose sight of creating infrastructure, because people get proud when they create infrastructure. And I knew that no, this is not the end, but this is a means to a goal of achieving good science around the mandate, and that is the bioresources of Himalayas. And so the objectives that this institute needed to follow had to be focused upon. So it was important that we understand the criticality of the mandate and focus onto the mandate. And systematically, first evolving the charter, and then focusing and rising on the thing, not abruptly, because no institution can go abrupt, particularly in remote areas. It can happen in cities, but not in remote areas. We have to go systematically, because the environment has to be to attract the best talent, and not only to attract them, but to retain them. So the environment in terms of housing, in terms of communication, in terms of their well-being and security was important. I had to create that.
This is the question that I was going to ask next, that how did you choose the best of the mind from the country? Because these are wonderful labs. But if you don't have the creative mind, especially a mix of the young and the experienced, how do you function? You can't do science without that.
It was a challenge. Today also it's a challenge. That today one redeeming feature is that everybody agrees that the infrastructure is world class. And in fact, people are taken aback when they go to a remote area and see that.
Palampur is such a height, it's so difficult to go there.
So, infrastructure is there to retain. The second point is, up to a certain age and stage, the staff doesn't feel the crunch. But beyond that, that's a truly national lab with people from all over the country. They have their limitation at some point of growth in terms of connectivity with their families and elders. And then at some point of time, their children's education counts. So, all these things put us a little bit at a loss. And I think we need to have governmental policies to focus on these areas because these areas require good institutions. But they have their unique features which we need to address.
You picked up problems of the region. One of the major problem was to grow tea. The other one was to focus on rose and then aromatic and medicinal plants. These were local problems. And then you connected it to the international research. Uh, Normally, people don't think about when they're creating a world class institute, they think about world class problems. Here you are, who thought about these things and then connected it. How did you, was it from the colleagues and those who were there? Because you're not a local person.
We had a lot of brainstormings amongst us and between scientific people, but our ethos became locally relevant, globally significant. That is our ethos. That we need to be locally relevant, then we can sustain to be there, and we need to be globally significant if we are to be known. Today, we were very conscious that we need to align with the world, the best, and go beyond it. And you can't go in all directions, but yes, in certain areas, we are the leaders globally. And I'm proud of that, that yes, in bioprospection, in discovery, in mechanisms and phenomena, we've elucidated a lot. May it be photosynthesis, plant adaptations, enzymes, products, natural products. It's a whole host. And in bioresource and biodiversity characterization, globally, it's a world-class work which is referred to and it's referenced so well.
And it is connected to the entire world.
Exactly.
World of the area that IHBT specializes in.
Yes.
Connectivity has definitely increased with internet, and a lot of handicaps have been overcome. But yet, you need to interact also personally with the
Yes.
global community of scientists.
Very
How do you overcome that?
To a large extent, we don't deter our people to go where they want to. But I think we have to enhance that capacity even more. Not only within the country, but also without, that we need to go to the world. And I think such remotely located labs should get more resources for their staff to be upgraded at all levels.
And also invite
Yes,
the
and also
experts.
invite others and also have collaborative projects. This has been identified by us as a limitation.
So it is a limitation
It is.
which could be inhibiting in future.
Yes.
One has to look into that and take corrective measures. Uh, you have been given awards, and the list is pretty long. Which of the awards did you enjoy the best?
Well, for my contribution, it has been overall in terms of building institutions. That's what they know me for. But I've been trekking these Himalayas and high altitude work of my focus. I have really loved that, and I feel there's a lot to do at high altitudes. And my work acknowledged for that, I feel the best.
Great. I just wanted to ask you the last question. And the last question is that what is your message to the younger generation?
My message is that they need to feel confident of themselves, be connected with themselves in a spiritual sense. It's very important. And believe in themselves. And not to look here and there for any support. Nobody is going to come to support you
Focus.
except for yourself. And that's been my ethos, that I have to help myself to whatever I have to do and not depend upon here and there support. So if one is independent in that way, one goes ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahuja, for giving us so much of time and coming to Rajya Sabha channel. We'll come back next week with as fascinating a personality who has excelled in science. But before that, let me, on behalf of Dr. Ahuja, promise you that we would be happy to reply to any of your queries. You can send us comments and any feedback that you think is relevant. Write to us at eureka@gmail.com.